Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the FAI Wire. My name is Gabe, and as always, it's great to be back with you. I want to remind everyone that the Wire is active on that social media network formerly known as Twitter. There's just too much going on in the Middle East and the greater Muslim world for us to cover in our video updates every other week, so you can track with us on X at FAI_wire. Also, just a reminder to sign up for updates on FAI's new open source initiative, the Genesis Project. You can go to genesiscrisisresponse.com and enter your email address to get updates about the project that will give Western Christians the opportunity to train with the best crisis response teams in the world in the Israeli military, so that the body of Messiah will be prepared to be on the front lines of the next crisis in Israel or in the unreached nations of the Muslim world. Again, that web address is genesiscrisisresponse.com. All right, on to business. Our first story of the day concerns the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the region of Nagorno-Karabakh, where the Armenian population of 120,000 has endured a 250-day blockade by the Azeri government. The government of Azerbaijan, with the tacit support of the Turkish government, has completely isolated Nagorno-Karabakh, known as Artsakh to Armenian locals, cutting off the territory from the neighboring country of Armenia along the Lakin corridor. That highway was Artsakh's lifeline to the outside world for food, fuel, and medicine. Videos published on social media showed row after row of empty shelves in grocery stores and pharmacies, pictures of formerly healthy young people now starved to death, whose bodies are reminiscent of concentration camp victims during the Holocaust, just underscores the dire situation inside the small Armenian enclave, where even a representative of the International Criminal Court in The Hague admitted that there is evidence of attempted genocide. This comes 110 years after the attempted genocide of the Armenian people by the Turkish government of the time, the Ottoman Empire, the Turkic cousins of Azerbaijan, when over 1 million Armenians were forcibly displaced from their homes in Turkey, raped, murdered, starved, and worked to death. Today, the international chorus of voices is growing in concern for the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, including in the European Union and in both major parties in the U.S. government. However, because of strategic partnerships in both nations with the Azeri government for natural gas, oil pipelines, and because of its strategic value as a bulwark against the influence of Iran in the region, international pressure against the Azeri government to end the blockade has not been very strong to date. Meanwhile, Azeri state media has made it clear in recent broadcasts that they believe the entire nation of Armenia is the territory of Azerbaijan, hinting at their desire to invade and occupy the entire country, which would be disastrous and even cataclysmic for the Armenian people. 250 days and counting. Our next story concerns the economic freefall in the divided nation of Syria, where anti-regime rebel forces still control a small enclave in the northwest province of Idlib and in the south along the Jordanian border, and where the autonomous government in the Kurdish majority region still exists east of the Euphrates River, called Rojava. Due to ongoing conflict, corruption, and international sanctions, the Syrian pound plummeted in value on the international exchange market to more than 15,000 pounds to every $1 US. When the Syrian civil war began during the early days of the Arab Spring in 2011, the Syrian pound was trading at 47 to every $1 US. That's a 320% drop in value over the course of the last 12 years. And there's no signs of stopping. Although the government immediately doubled public sector salaries last week, even that could not keep up with the tripling of fuel prices and other goods. The government of dictator Bashar al-Assad, which has enjoyed recent normalization with most of the region's Arab governments after a decade of civil war, now faces another wave of popular unrest, as skyrocketing prices sparked public anti-regime demonstrations in the region of Daraa in the southwest near the Jordanian border, where protesters chanted, "We want the fall of the regime." Notably, Daraa was the birthplace of the Syrian revolution in March 2011, back when the uprising was still mostly peaceful protests against regime oppression and lack of economic opportunities. Now Syrians find themselves under a much more repressive government and a much more depressed economy, proving that the underlying issues that sparked the civil war in the first place have only metastasized over the last 12 years, and guaranteeing that the Syrian civil war is still far from over. Finally, our top story of the day concerns the recent resurgence of the Iranian regime, which was recently guaranteed the release of $6 billion currently frozen in South Korean banks. The money is part of an unreported deal with the U.S. government to release 5 American prisoners from Iran, and also includes the release of 5 Iranian nationals from American prisons, most of whom were convicted of violating U.S. economic sanctions against the Iranian regime. As Iran reportedly lowers its stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%, concerns are growing in the U.S. Congress and the media that the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden has struck some kind of secret deal with Iran concerning its nuclear program, bypassing the U.S. Congress, which has oversight and ratification powers, according to the U.S. Constitution anyhow. So far, spokespeople for the White House and State Department have sidestepped questions about such a backroom deal, insisting that negotiations are ongoing. Although Iran's enrichment of 60% uranium has slowed, it still has a massive stockpile of uranium enriched to 20% capacity, which experts point out is still a very high rate, allowing for a fast breakout to nuclear weapons-grade fuel. Iran is also working with Russia to build a massive arsenal of suicide drones for Russia's use in its war with Ukraine. After a $1 billion deal was struck between the two nations last November, the construction of facilities and the recruitment of personnel have been moving apace, marrying Iranian drone technology with Russian manufacturing power in a plan to construct 6,000 military drones over the next 2 years, including a variant of the Iranian Shahed 136 suicide drone. U.S. sanctions which limit the sale of drone components to Iran are due to expire this October. If not renewed, the lapse in sanctions will allow the Russo-Iranian drone project to grow exponentially. Hundreds of suicide drones have already been used by Russia against both military and civilian targets in Ukraine over the past year, including large population centers such as the capital of Kiev. The partnership works both ways, allowing Iran to bolster its revenue and technological development at a time when its nuclear weapons program is reaching a critical stage, and when its efforts to pressure the State of Israel through proxies such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad are increasing rapidly. As always, we ask the Maranatha Global family to continue in prayer for the people of Israel, Iran, Syria, and Armenia, who are living in the shadows of the Iranian and Turkish regimes. We pray for the plots and designs of the enemy to be thwarted, for divine wisdom to be granted to international leaders, and most of all, for every crisis to open a wide, effectual door for good news in dark, unreached places. Blessings to you all. We love you, and Maranatha.